Welcome, everybody. And I'm your host, Henri Arslanian, and welcome to this other episode of the Future of Money podcast. As you know, my goal with this podcast is very, very simple. It's to go deep in some of the biggest ideas, trends, and developments we are seeing in the field of crypto, and hopefully empower you with this information and then let you make your own decision on what their impact could be on the future of finance and money. And to do this, I invite each week one of the leading figures of the global crypto community to have this one-on-one conversation amongst crypto aficionados and discuss some of these topics. Our guest today is somebody very special. He was actually not only the co-founder and CEO of the Sandbox, Mr. Sebastien Borget, but he was actually a former guest of the show as well. He's been on about more than 6 months ago now, and we really wanted to have him on board to really share some of the latest updates that we're seeing, not only with the Sandbox, but also on the broader metaverse and broader Web3 and gaming ecosystems as well. Sebastien, good to have you on the show once again.
Definitely, it's good to be here again, Henri.
Well, one thing people may not know about you, Sebastien, is obviously you're not only they know you as a co-founder of the Sandbox, but what I love about you is you're also a big collector of Japanese comic books and a big card collector. I remember last time you told me you have over 2,000 Japanese comics books, which I love. I think that's a great hobby from that perspective.
I've been a collector of all things. As far as I remember, marbles when I was a kid, football cards, panini, and so much more.
You know, it's funny. I was just talking with somebody about Panini cards, and especially with the World Cup going on as we're recording this, really, it's incredible business, and the fandom around that has been around the Panini cards has been absolutely incredible. It's great to have you on board, Sebastien, today. A lot of developments I want to cover today for our audience, but and I want to talk about obviously the impact of what's happening in the broader metaverse ecosystem, also related to the gaming ecosystem, and then I want to really kind of double down and understand more about some of the developments going on within the Sandbox ecosystem that I think could be quite relevant to our audience. Since you last came, obviously there's been a lot of changes in the broader ecosystem, but let me really start about really the big elephant in the room. Obviously, at the time we're recording this, we had FTX collapse almost a month ago. What do you think will be the repercussions of the FTX collapse on the broader metaverse ecosystem, including the NFT ecosystem? Let's not forget there was a lot of NFTs that were trading on FTX. Just keen to understand from your perspective how big you think the impact could be, specifically on the metaverse ecosystem.
Well, I think on the metaverse ecosystem itself, the impact is limited because Sandbox itself has no correlation with FTX. And well, FTX wasn't really involved in things, even NFT, which has utility into the metaverse, etc. They were very limited to collectible on the marketplace. Yet, I think generally speaking, it was impacted the general trust and confidence that people could have into crypto, Web3, and NFT, which are not all the same, as you obviously know, but people have sometimes the lack of education led people to think these are all correlated. What it shows is basically FTX was a heavily centralized company at the end of the day. So it's not the failure of cryptocurrency. It's not the failure of blockchain as a technology. It's not the failure of NFT at all. It's just once again, the proof that concentration of power and governance and even distribution of tokens, so few holders had the FTT token, ultimately led to this situation. So let's keep focusing on the right fundamental. Why we're here in Web3, we're here to build a decentralized world where users are owners of here in the case of Sandbox, of the virtual world platform. They are the one who are going to lead the development and get the value from the development of that platform by being landowners, owning the Sand token, and so on. So ultimately, it has an impact on the market side, in the general trust that people have in cryptocurrency, one of the applications of blockchain, not the only one. And we have to rebuild, re-educate even more. But it's not a problem at the same way, because even though the general tech market and even cryptocurrency in general might be down, at the same time, we're seeing a growing adoption of metaverse. People understand that NFT with real utility make more sense. And so playing with an avatar, your digital identity as an NFT, it's a strong value proposition. So we are seeing, I'm sure we can dig a little bit more into the figures of Sandbox, but the recent result of the season 3, the number of brands and partners that keep entering every week Sandbox, the number of experience and events that are launching on the platform, the number of partners in our ecosystem, like Builder Studio around the world, that's been multiplied tenfold. And then all of that are positive sign of like a growing user partner adoption of the product built on that technology.
And actually, on that point, maybe for the benefit of our listeners, can you give an update of where we are with Sandbox right now? The last time you came on the show, things were kicking off. Now it's the end of season 3. Can you give us an idea of where we are in this particular kind of the number of users? You alluded to some of the 10x growth you've had, but some of the user data we have and some of the ecosystem data that we have on the Sandbox.
Absolutely. Like Sandbox to date counts over 4.3 million wallets, users registered with a wallet, which roughly speaking, to give a sense of comparison, I think OpenSea announced 3 million wallets. We have about 100 million MetaMask active currently. So it's becoming significant within Web3. We've launched this season 3. It lasts 10 weeks. It was a point of time where people could enter and play experiences that we curated. 98 experiences, including 22 from major brands like Warner Music, Snoop Dogg, Steve Aoki, The Walking Dead, and Care Bear, Smurf, many more. We also have launched a thorough land sale that I will be talking right after. But let's pause a little bit about season 3 because we have very interesting metrics here to share. We have had over 17 million visits, people entering experiences with their avatar, playing. On average, users have been spending 20 to 30 minutes per session, 1 hour 20 on a daily basis. That are huge numbers, proving engagement in the metaverse, proving people are coming, interacting, completing quests, exploring, having fun, chatting, dancing. Like these things are happening. Like this is great. On average, we had 30 to 40,000 active users on a daily basis. 360,000 unique players in total. So those are interesting metrics as well, showing like it's starting off. They are not big numbers, but they are definitely significant. Specifically, since Sandbox is still only available on PC and Mac, you need to install a client to start playing. It will open progressively next year to mobile around the end of the year, and to have more content available at all time. I think like this is a big paradigm shift versus traditional consumption and attention span of users in Web2 and social media or even mobile gaming. Like most of games application, we measure engagement and around like 2-3 minutes on the social app session time. When you watch a social content, it's more 5 to 10 second attention time. Just to say that like people are keen to explore, complete quests, socialize, chat. 8 million messages have been exchanged among users around chat. They play 2.4 million hours altogether. That's a strong metric again, and I think it's an important milestone as we're heading towards the end of 2022.
It's very interesting data, actually. Congratulations, Sebastien, I have to say, since the last time you came, these numbers are actually quite impressive. One thing I want to dig in a bit more, you mentioned obviously mobile. And I think if we look at the evolution of many other games, obviously it started with PC, but obviously mobile became an increasing part of it. What's the timeline you think where we will see let's say Sandbox be more available or usable on mobile? And also, do you think that's going to change the interaction that users have with the platform?
So it's definitely part on our 2023 roadmap to keep adding more content, experiences that drive people in, have fun, to move Sandbox to become more multi-platform, starting with mobile, which is the most accessible device. Like you want to be able to play, to join your friends into session from just anywhere. Like your friends send you an invitation, join me in my land, let's dance together. There is like right now the concert of Snoop Dogg happening. That could be a great flow to drive people in. So we are all about that. It's already work in progress. We also feel like it's a time now, like we are constantly upgrading our creation tool like Game Maker to add like multiplayer gameplay, to add more in-game video stream, and a lot of visual effects. So there will be a lot of excitement and new creative possibilities for creators coming up at the same time as letting landowners open their lands to their own community. So ultimately leading to Sandbox becoming a platform still in development, ongoing, but now more and more open, which is not just depending on season or events that Sandbox curates, but really the whole platform being open as per the vision or the original vision.
And how close do you think Sandbox is to become? I remember last time we spoke, one of your goals is to make it a user sustained metaverse, right? Where it's not only the Sandbox team that is really building these games and publishing them, but really the ecosystem is doing it. The gamers are doing it. The community is doing it. How far do you think we are from reaching that stage where it's really completely user sustained?
I think that we're definitely into that transition. Like, we wanted to inspire people with the possibilities to show what things can be done, show how we create systems that drive engagement, that drive retention, that drive fun, bringing ideas and content, and now like giving all those tools to the community, letting them publish on their land. So I think 1 year from now, Sandbox will be very different. Like, you'll see hundreds of experience open at all times, more and more successful projects. We haven't yet found like the Rovio, the Supercell of Sandbox platform. That is going to come. I'm sure there will be very talented studios and creators from anywhere in the world that can leverage those possibilities. So yes, it's definitely work in progress. 1 to 2 years from now, I think like fully UGC will be the model. We'll keep curating on our side best content and organized session, but UGC will have taken a much larger proportion of like how people onboard the metaverse.
And I think you raise a very good point, because I think that's really going to change the interaction. Also, the dynamic, kind of the DNA changes as well, the platform. And that's very, very exciting from that perspective. You know, one thing, whenever I speak to gamers, right? And I was having this conversation with Paul Dawalibi, the host of the Business of Esports recently. Often when I speak to traditional gamers, not let's say Web3 gamers, often the comment they tell me that is like, games are not fun. You know, the priority of gaming should be to make fun games. And then whether it's Web3, we can own our data, you know, be able to sell our skins to different platforms. That should be secondary. Where do you think, Sebastien, we are when it comes to making games fun, Web3 games fun, metaverse games fun? Or you think as crypto people, we're often focused more on the Web3 element, that we're able to own the skin and we're able to own the land, and we're kind of forgetting the fun part of the gaming experience, which is obviously crucial and has been the root of the success that traditional Web2 gaming has had over the years?
I think there's not black and white situation. Like, they are definitely right. Like, it should be driven by fun first. Like, people just don't want to own something. They want the ownership, the true digital ownership come as a benefit, but they stay engaged because of like they have their friend, the socialization and the fun. Definitely those are a key aspect that we fully understand. We are seeing people are having fun in Sandbox. Maybe not the same kind of fun that those gamers would be expecting, but like we've seen people laughing, sharing selfie over social media, dancing together, etc. It's a new way to express their fun. And that comes, I think, as well as just like every new gaming platform or any new technology. Let me give you a concrete example. When the Nintendo 3DS came, and then when the Nintendo Switch came, or the Wii U, etc., like new controllers, new ways to play games, even smartphone, touchscreen, accelerator, they have been bringing new players. And that's how, over years, the video game industry has become like a 3 billion players around the world industry that represents roughly $200 billion revenue, more than music and cinema combined. But it means that a platform like Sandbox is not necessarily targeting existing gamer. Our goal is to bring opportunity of entertainment, a new format of entertainment that has gaming component, but not only. We touch art, we touch music, we touch fashion, luxury, sport, lifestyle, virtual show, virtual concert. All of that where people can socialize, can play, can complete quests and more. So we are broadening the spectrum of who can be the audience in the metaverse. Maybe you've never played action or FPS or RPG game, but you want to meet your friend, dance with them, and visit an art gallery while you chat together. Maybe you want to visit Snoop Dogg house while you're stuck in quarantine in Hong Kong. And like there are new opportunities, a new form of experiences. That's why we don't say they are just games. Ultimately, not both are right. Like not one is going to remove another. It's just like extra entertainment and content where we can spend time. But yes, we also have to keep doing fun things. So multiplayer gaming is a huge focus for Sandbox in 2023. We know like people like to play like who runs the fastest on 2 parkour game and so on. And that is coming as well. And in the community of creators, when you bring new creators, they invent different gameplays. Like Roblox as his own gameplay that were different on what you could find on the mobile store or on the console, and attract hundreds of millions of people playing and having fun. So that hyper casual came from mobile and was very different from AAA console games and so on. So I'm sure Sandbox will have some unique gameplays that are fun and retain their audience as well.
So what's your view on, let's say, some of the Web2 game ecosystem, right? You mentioned Roblox, and from Call of Duty, League of Legends, and World of Warcraft, the list goes on and on. Do you think these traditional Web2 games will adapt to Web3 ecosystems and even play in metaverse ecosystems where it's open? Or you think they're going to try to stick as long as they can to their Web2 closed-gated communities and to continue the current model that we have today?
I think what we're seeing here, I'm going to speak as the president of the Blockchain Game Alliance. We're seeing a growing number of traditional gaming companies, Square Enix, Atari, Ubisoft, G2A, that have joined and shown interest to introduce element of ownership for their players. They are becoming more and more receptive to the idea that players want to own their content, their skins, their NFTs, their avatars, their equipment, and so on. But they don't really know yet how to introduce it in a way that it brings a lot of value and utility for their community. So like they don't scare the player away with, oh, it's not just we are going to sell something just for extra money, but we understand that it's benefit for you. And it's in my opinion, it should even be like your legitimate right to own those things. So some will adapt. And as more and more adapt, I feel like the late adopter will say like, it's a feature we cannot not have, like because players want it, players are used about it, and it's becoming the new normal. It's a transition that will obviously take time, but we're seeing the mindset change. People understand that also like decentralization, true digital ownership, community driven, even guilds, and decentralized guild is a model that can benefit both the developer, the players, and various stakeholders in the distribution chain that they are looking at, because they are kind of, I think like the main thing we were seeing is many developers, they want to get out of like this system, which like distribution is controlled by essentially 2 stores who decide to take 30% on every transaction. 30% of is no longer valuable, specifically when those platforms are even like today, the discovery is a challenge for your game. The distribution, getting installs, 10 years ago, when you were featured by Apple on the mobile, it was worth millions of dollars, millions of downloads. It could make a like big success, Today, with so much restriction in place, etc., if you don't have $1 million budget to invest at your launch, probably more, I'm probably wrong, it should be more than $10 million now, you cannot even make it into the top. There are established players. It's very hard for new entrants, and we're seeing a growing number of new business model and the reluctance from platform to say, oh, I want even to take 30% on your gas fees on Coinbase. That's what I was reading. Maybe it was a misinterpretation, but it didn't feel good that to see the level of ownership that those platforms want to maintain instead of like embracing what the users want.
So, I mean, I think you're right. It's probably a matter of time that these 30% that, like Apple charges on its App Store, it's just going to disappear, right? It just doesn't make any sense from that perspective.
Absolutely. But they're not the only one. If you look Roblox, it's more than 70% at the end of the day. And what you don't see is like, yes, the initial rev share. But once you have to reinvest into the platform for user acquisition, part of your revenue, you actually, all right, yeah, well, you cut even more your revenue. So that's something that I feel like in 2022 and more is no longer an acceptable model, and more creators, studios are looking at new ways to be closer to their community and shift that value from the platform to the users.
Yeah, and I think you're right, because this is such an element where there's a trigger point at one point, and users are fed up with that, right? And builders and the ecosystems as well. I have to say, I've been surprised for how long this has been going, right? But if you look at analogies of other industries, you think about banking, for example. We've had these intermediaries, if you want, platforms that have been charging us high fees for a long time. And what I'm always amazed when I see in the gaming world is actually these things still exist, and at pretty high levels, as you mentioned. It's actually quite shocking. I wanted to ask you about one other thing about, you mentioned about guilds, right? Like, what do you think is the future of gaming guilds? And maybe explain for our audience what they are, and what is your view on it and their potential impact, benefits, and downsides on the future of metaverse ecosystems and gaming ecosystems as well.
It's really interesting to design a game with a Web3 perspective. Like, you create assets and you want the community to own their assets. So you have to do the balancing very differently. You have to involve like economic designer to work on tokenomics in case you also have like currencies involved in the game. And you need to think like how those resources can be actually generated on one side by a certain category of players and consumed on the other side, but maybe not the same player. So that creating these multi-roles is what actually creates an interesting design for guilds to thrive. And we know guilds are not the only one, but they are a very powerful way to access to players. You don't need to pay those players through user acquisition if your game design incorporates the right incentive for people to collect resources, while others are demanding those resources for pursuing the gameplay in another side. Because Web3 game and blockchain gaming is also very early on. It's an industry long, like 3, 4 years, 5 years old, maybe at best. We still haven't figured out what is the best iteration yet of the play and earn, or you name it as you want, learn to earn, work to earn, and so on. Various activities that generate a certain resource behind. And the challenge is some of those designs are already being challenged because they are zero-sum games. There is no external influx of money than like from the players themselves, which is bad. Like, the good, healthy design would be a full circular economy with multiple actors who enter and inject money, which is not the game itself or the players themselves, right? So we learn from that, we iterate, and now we see more advanced gameplays, different games, and also traditional games who have had those kind of economies before for a long time, but in a centralized manner, who offer interesting value proposition for all those different stakeholders.
It's super interesting. I think it's going to be this is one sector that I think when we talk about the whole broader Web3, the gaming ecosystem, I'm a firm believer. I've mentioned this many times, Sebastien, that I believe the next billion users of crypto will come via gaming. And I really expect to see the two roles of gaming and crypto really come together. I think what you guys have been doing is a perfect example, actually, how these two are coming. And not only you and the whole Animoca group as well. Like you said, I think this is why one area that, whether people are investors, whether it's VCs, whether it's ecosystem, need to pay a bit more attention, just because I think it's going to be such a powerful driver. And I think we're seeing it right now with the bear market we're going to in crypto, with some of the collapse of FTX and other elements. I think this is one sector I think it's definitely one to watch over the next couple of months. I want to ask you one or two more questions on let's say on the broader perspective. And then before, I wanted to talk about California Dreaming as well, and some of the new initiatives you had. One of them is on, when people think about metaverse gaming, right? So the average person on the street, we tell them, hey, we're going to talk to you about metaverse gaming. Often they think about virtual reality, augmented reality. What's your view of these innovations when it comes to actually the Sandbox, and how are you looking at them from that perspective?
Well, I think we are at the very heart of it. Like, we're actively contributing to build an open metaverse. We're part of the Open Metaverse Alliance together with other decentralized virtual world and actors who want to together like grow this ecosystem and enable more interoperability of asset, of avatar, digital identities, etc. among each other. What I'm seeing though is like there's been quite an abuse of the world of what a metaverse is, and that led to even more confusion. Like, no, not every game is a metaverse. If you go back to the original term from the science fiction book written by Neil Stephenson, Snow Crash, 25 years ago, is this idea that it's avatar centric, first of all, like you have a 3D character that goes from one world to another and keeps everything he owns through all of them. That's really how we approach it. And in that sense, I see a great general interest, a lot of curiosity. Like whenever I ask in front of panels where I talk, everyone has heard about metaverse, but so few people have entered the metaverse concretely and played and interacted. So first issue, like they still think like metaverse is VR. Like I think like Meta has done a great job at making people associate metaverse with VR headset, which is like just by itself fully wrong. Like we know the metaverse will be multi-platform, desktop, mobile, web, AR, XR is one way to enter it, not the only way. The second thing is because not many people have entered metaverse, like, and it's probably the industry fault to not provide enough content and experiences for them to enter. Then it leads to more confusion and maybe even fatigue. Like you cannot hear all the time about something and have nothing tangible to touch it. And that's why make great hardware if you don't have great content to explore with that hardware. So typically at Sandbox, why we focus so much on launching content concretely, and we are not the only one. Decentralized having event, etc. But Sandbox has season, we have events, because we want people to feel concretely what's already possible, to showcase that it's more than gaming, that it's not VR, that it's about socialization, about inclusivity with people and avatar from diverse origin, including collection within the Web3 ecosystem, and be inspired by that. And so progressively, and thanks also to your work, Henri, with podcasts and learn, educating and empowering people through knowledge, we're having a progression where people are at least have created an avatar, have started and made their own opinion about it. So be curious, explore the metaverse, even if it's still early on, so you can see where it can be going.
It's very exciting, actually. And I think, on that point as well, I mean, obviously, you're a busy person, Sebastien, and this is a question I was telling to my friend Toro Seferian from ACX, who was telling me I was going to speak to you today. And he was and I have to ask you this question. I mean, do you have the time? Obviously, you know the gaming industry very, very well. Do you have the time to test each season? Are you able to test the game yourself? With your busy schedule, how much time are you able to spend on testing these new experiences and the game testing process on a day-to-day perspective? Or obviously you have a big team as well, but how much of it do you actually do it yourself and able to get the live one-on-one feedback from that perspective?
So that's something like, I think it's very important to test, to be close to the product. And that's why you can see me post quite often about my, some video moment of me with my avatar interacting with other users. Like, I don't feel like you can talk or be into something without deeply testing the product and interacting with the community. So that's something people, yes, they maybe see me at various conferences. What they don't see me is I also spend 8 hours a day minimum, like with our team globally to work on every single aspect of the product, the user experience, the content. So I'm very attached. I'm still a very strong product guy and an engineer from background. And yeah, I do test everything. I do answer every single email that people write to me, so I understand the feedback from the community. People need to feel that we're accessible and we are deeply into what we do.
And what's the biggest challenge? Let's say when it comes to making a decision after a certain changes happen in each, let's say, alpha season, how do you guys go to decide to make a certain change or not? Because I'm sure that some of them change are the community is very vocal as well, and then you have to make team as a leadership team. What's the most difficult process? What's the most difficult decision in that process?
So, well, I think a community doesn't mean like you only have like people 100% supporting you, right? Like you have Like you should have a healthy ratio of like users, creators, artists, people who love it, who hate it. The best part of the community is when you have people who dislike something, you talk to them, you make change, and then they like that you listen and approve and make change, taking into account their feedback. The first thing is we try to be as transparent as possible. Like sometimes we know some decision will not make everyone happy, but we explain why we're doing them. The second is like we are gathering and involving the community sometimes in voting to some of the most important decisions we are going to make. We did that during season 3. We had a community vote to decide if we were adapting certain rules, excluding certain behaviors that were not appropriate, not fair. And we're working behind the scenes to improve the different mechanisms we put in place to ensure a more fair and fun user experience overall.
That's amazing. Two more questions that we're running out of time, and just quickly, maybe in a minute each. First of all, can you just share more about our audience? I saw you guys launching a whole new initiative called California Dreaming. Can you share what's that about, and what's going to be what's the output of that for the ecosystem?
So, like, also that Sandbox is part virtual real estate. We have this map, 166, 164 lands in total. We sold 70% of those land until April or May this year. I think with Mega City 2 was a great land sale. We ended up. And then we didn't do any land sale until now. And now we have done 3 major land sale where we've curated strong brand around strong music artists and more around certain thematic. Like California Dreaming was Tony Hawk for sport, Playboy for lifestyle, Face Clan for gaming and esport and lifestyle, and Snoop Dogg as well for music artists. And you could become their virtual neighbor in a quite small neighborhood of just 300 lands. It sold out entirely, obviously. Auction did great, but it sold out in a new way. Like we listened again to the feedback of the community. Like we created a raffle where anyone who had the intention could come to become landowner. And at the end of the day, it's no longer like who comes the fastest, who pay the most gas fees and so on. Everyone has equal chances to become. And we also fed one landowner. So we have the best ratio now of distribution. Like everyone, more than 50% of the new users of the landowner are new users. That's the exciting metric. So we keep growing our community. We done the Galleria, the same, like another region where we curated Cipriani, Time Magazine, L'Officiel, Paris Hilton, great brand as well, more around luxury, art and fashion. And we just announced the same way. We sold out. The raffle went very well. The community was happy. And now we have announced the Cavers with 17 major partners from Korea, bringing K-pop and the rest of Korean culture in gaming and sport and more with the Kelly into a bigger region of 700 land. And it's live right now. So can enter the raffle for a chance to be a neighbor into a very strong K cultural region of the Sandbox.
That's going to be interesting. I have to say that some of these developments you guys are doing are quite interesting. Sebastien, we're really out of time, but of course, my bell is with me, and I want to do a fire round of questions. Actually, for those watching this on YouTube, I just arrived in Hong Kong, and for the first 3 days, Hong Kong is still stuck in 2020. I'm not allowed to go to a restaurant or any cafe, anything, and so that's why I'm doing this. I'm recording this from my hotel room. Actually, that's why you see the background. I just went to buy a new bell because I forgot mine in Dubai. So we're going to go through rapid rounds of questions, Sebastien. I'm going to ask you questions, and I need a short answer, like we did last time. You know the drill, and we'll go through it, and the bell will keep us honest. Are you ready?
All right.
Excellent. Okay, Sebastien, you've worked with many artists as part of the Sandbox collaborations, Paris Hilton, Snoop Dogg, K-pop artists. Who is the most impressive or artist you met so far that has left a mark with you, and why?
Now, Blondish, like Abracadabra Land that you can play right now is amazing.
Well, here we go. Interesting. You obviously played a lot of video games throughout your life. What is the one favorite game outside of Sandbox ecosystem that you love the most? Web 2 or Web 3?
Counter-Strike. Spent all my teenage days on that.
There's now a lot of pushback against the acquisition of Activision Blizzard, with Microsoft. Do you think the deal? What's your view on that acquisition?
No special opinion.
You think it's gonna go through? You think it's gonna create antitrust issues, or they're gonna block it?
I think it could go through. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Meta earlier on with Horizon World. What's your, if you have to put a grade from 1 to 10 on how Meta has been promoting its metaverse and what they've been building, what grade would you give them? 1 being terrible and 10 being excellent.
3.
Oh wow, really? Why is that?
But they've done effort to get a lot of people interested into metaverse, right? They've built a product somehow, and people are using that product, so you have to recognize from it. But it's not the most fun, it's not the most exciting, it doesn't make people want to come back into it. So yeah.
Often people, when they talk about Sandbox, they talk about Decentraland. What is the one good thing you think Decentraland has done, and what is the one mistake Decentraland has done?
Great thing that Decentraland has done is like they are already fully decentralized. So like people can see what's a project that's fully owned and managed by a community could be.
And what is the one error? What is the one mistake?
Yeah, I think like it is lacking enough gaming mechanics. So people can do more than just events with their avatar in the product. So maybe like it's only getting people for limited amount of time and experiences rather than building a bigger progression model for users.
I would probably agree with that as well. There's a lot of gaming activity going on around the world. What's the one region of the world you're the most bullish when it comes to gaming innovation right now?
It's like we're seeing a lot of gaming and innovation in Korea typically, and also like expanding in APAC region more broadly.
Favorite comic book? You're a big comic book collector. What's your favorite comic book of all times?
Oh, Captain Tsubasa, which is in Sandbox too. So I'm really excited about that.
Oh, here we go. Excellent. What's the most difficult thing you think right now as a co-founder and COO that you're experiencing with Sandbox? What is the most difficult challenge you think right now for you right now, personally?
One big challenge is basically like how we ensure that we all work as a team toward like one simple goal, like make the metaverse simple, make it empowering users, build great content and experiences, bring something fun. So it's one word is easy, fun. How we translate it is quite difficult.
I think that's a case for many people. Very, very well said. You're spending a lot of time in Paris. What's your favorite thing to do in Paris?
But Paris is full of culture, obviously. But like, there's a lot of like Web3 project around. Like, I don't want to say the capital of Web3, but it has a strong community and values project, and that's exciting.
What's your favorite thing to do on weekends now?
Oh, family time and biking.
Yeah, here we go. If there's one message you want to give to the broader Sandbox community, what is the one message you have for the community?
Keep building, keep innovating, keep exploring. We haven't found yet, like what will be the most successful model in Sandbox. The answer lies into you guys.
And last question, Sebastien, the classic question of the Future of Money podcast. Again, thanks for joining us today on the show. If you could have lunch or dinner with one person, dead or alive, lunch or dinner with one person, dead or alive, Sebastien, who would you have lunch with or dinner with?
Bill Gates.
Oh yeah, why is that?
Why? Oh, well, he's been, I think, he's a person that has been like genuinely transparent, kind, willing to do great around him, not and he built software that like transformed forever like the computer industry and beyond. So
love it. Well, Sebastien, thank you very much for being with us today on the show. Where can people find you? What's the best way if they want to learn more about the Sandbox and actually be able to follow you directly as well?
Twitter for following me, and like on www.sandbox.game, and then all our various community channel, Gitbook, academies, and so on.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Again, thank you very much for everybody for listening to this podcast. Hope it was interesting. Again, I think there's a lot of it was very interesting, Sebastien. Really, thanks for being with us today. Again, for all of you who are listening at home, thank you guys for making this podcast such a success. I just realized we're in over 160 countries right now. Thank you for really being making such a success from that perspective. Sebastien, thanks for being with us today. Again, I want to have you back on the show to hear more about some of the new developments you have, but always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Henri. See you in 2023.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.